Hello everyone, welcome back. If you don't know, we make sewing patterns especially made for drag queens, and today I'm going to show you how to sew this hot buckled collar spiked sleeve. It's made in our usual drag queen sizes from extra small to 4X, however this is a unisex pattern and can be worn by any gender that fits within the size measurements provided. You can download this pattern at katkow.net, part of our Halloween 2025 collection. Let's get started. Once you download and print the pattern, you can assemble the pages. For detailed instructions on printing and assembly, watch this video linked at the top. Once assembled, you should have the following paper pattern pieces. 1 collar belt. 1 collar belt loop. 1 front and back piece. 1 front and back sleeve. 1 spike 1 piece. 1 spike 2 piece. And 1 spike 3 piece. The front and back pieces of this sleeve are mirrored, so you will use the same paper pattern piece for both the front and back fabric. For the fabric, it's best to use a heavy-duty, non-stretch fabric such as faux leather. I'll be using faux leather vinyl in black and a vinyl in green with a similar structure. For the notions, you're going to need double-folded bias trim in a matching color. I'm using black. You're also going to need a belt buckle. This is a 2" by 2" metal belt buckle, as well as eyelets and grommets, along with a punching tool to install those and the buckle to the collar. To cut the fabric, you'll need to cut multiples of each paper pattern piece. Since we're working with faux leather, it's difficult to stack and cut 2 layers at the same time. Instead, it's best to cut 1 piece at a time. First, trace and cut 1 piece using the paper pattern. Then, flip the paper pattern over, to create a mirrored version and cut the opposite piece separately. Once your fabric is cut, you should have the following pieces. 1 collar piece in black faux leather, which will be folded in half. 1 collar belt loop in black. 2 mirrored front and back pieces cut in black. 2 mirrored front and back sleeve pieces cut in black. 2 mirrored spike 1 pieces cut in green. For spike 2, 2 mirrored pieces cut in black and 2 mirrored pieces cut in green. And for spike 3, the same, 2 mirrored pieces cut in black and 2 mirrored pieces cut in green. Before sewing, here's an example of how we lay out the fabric pieces. Spike 2 and spike 3 will each have 4 panels that form a pyramid shape, with the black panels on top and the green panels on the bottom. The notches on each spike should align with the side seam of the sleeve, where the front and back pieces join. First, separate the front and back pieces. Sew the top black piece of spike 2 to the bottom green piece, placing the right sides of the fabric together. Stitch along the clipped or pinned edge using a straight stitch. Once sewn, fold the excess seam allowance toward the black side, and top stitch it down. Repeat this for the spike 2 pieces on both the front and back. To attach the spike pieces to the front sleeve panel, first cut a small notch at the point where the spike 2 pieces will be placed. Flip the spike 2 pieces right sides facing the sleeve and sew one side at a time along each angled edge. Once sewn, clip any excess fabric at the point, then top stitch the excess along the black fabric edge. You will repeat this for all spike 3 pieces for the front and back sleeves. Next, attach the larger spike 1 pieces to their designated front and back sleeve edges. Remember, the notches indicate where they will meet along the side seam, but keep the front and back pieces separate for now. Sew spike 1 to its edge on both the front and back sleeves, then fold the excess seam allowance toward the black fabric and top stitch it down. Next, attach the front body piece to the front sleeve. Start by snipping a small notch at the point of the front shoulder piece. Place it right sides together on top of the spike 1 edge and sew it down. When you reach the armhole area, pivot the fabric and continue sewing the armhole of the body piece to the armhole of the front sleeve. Once sewn, flip the seam allowance toward the black fabric and top stitch it down. Repeat the same steps for the back pieces. At this stage, you may also want to sew the dart on the body pieces. You can do this before or after attaching the sleeve, following the dart markings on the paper pattern for both the front and back. Now, stack the front and back pieces together with right sides facing each other. Pin along the side and sew along the angled edge. Once that's done, sew the opposite edge of the sleeve. Before turning the sleeve right side out, trim any excess bulky seam allowance along the side seams. Then flip the sleeve right side out. Oops, I've made a mistake. Don't sew the small neck hole area, this is supposed to attach to the collar. To fix it, simply rip those seams. You may have to restitch along the shoulder to secure it again. Now we can add the bias trim along the raw edges of the sleeve. Since we're using faux leather, adding a lining is difficult, so we'll finish the edges with bias trim instead. To install it, first unfold the bias trim and pin it along the raw edges, right sides facing the right side of the fabric. Using about a 1/2 inch seam allowance, or the width of your bias trim, sew it in place. Then flip the folded bias trim over to the inside, tuck the back edge under, and top stitch it down. Repeat this process for both the top armhole edge and the bottom cuff edge of the sleeve. Now to attach the belted collar. First, locate the 3 notches on the collar. The center notch should align with the side seam of the sleeve. Pin the collar right side facing the right side of the sleeve and sew along that shoulder edge. Next, sew the ends of the collar together, right sides facing each other. Trim any excess seam allowance and flip the collar right side out. You'll see it forms a folded collar. Carefully fold in the 1/2 inch seam allowance along the sides of the collar, pin or clip all edges neatly in place, and then top stitch all around the collar to secure the folded seams. We can now sew the collar belt loop. Take the belt loop piece and fold it 4 times to create a narrow strip, then top stitch through all the layers to secure it. Next, sew the ends of the strip together by stacking them and top stitching multiple times to hold them in place. This creates the loop that will be inserted around the collar. To install the buckle, use the paper pattern guide to mark where the hole goes, then puncture the hole with an awl. Insert the buckle, fold the excess belt fabric over, and align the belt loop inside that folded section. Top stitch across to secure everything in place. The loop should now be locked into the buckle end. Next, install the eyelets and grommets. Using the paper pattern as a guide, mark holes spaced 1 inch apart, then use the punching tool to install all of the eyelets. Once done, you can buckle the collar together. And just like that, your spiked sleeve is complete. You can also customize it by attaching 2 sleeves to the same collar and experimenting with any color combinations you like. Please tag us in your creations at Katkow on Instagram and TikTok. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more drag queen sewing patterns and tutorials.